April 15th, 1994, my supervisor approached me and said he would like to see me in the office. He was curt and obviously angry. I followed him because I was told to. At that point, I didn't think to say no, and I didn't think that I was in any danger, so I followed him. We walked through the driver's office, and I remember thinking as we were walking through, this office is empty. It also had 3 doors and windows on it. And we continued to walk through, past the service center and into the boardroom, which has 1 door, no windows. He opened up the boardroom. I went in, and he closed it, and from that point on, his hand never left the handle of the door. He then said, "Look, we don't have to take your shit." As he said this, he pointed his right index finger toward my collarbone. His tone was angry and direct, his movements threatening. In self-defense, I was taught, you flee, you use your voice, or you attack. I couldn't flee, so I started raising my voice and saying, "I don't have to take your fucking shit," but I was quite loud, very forceful. He came at me. This was like this weird little dance a couple times, and finally I put my hand under his hand and got it off the knob and just went flying out of the room.
During my first 14 years in the post office, I worked in the same location on the same floor and with essentially the same people all the time. Then in June 1994, some positions were eliminated on our floor to move part-timers elsewhere in the building, and I was part of them. So we arrived in a different environment with new people and on another shift, so I no longer saw the people I used to work with. I was in a new group where there were very few women. 4 of us were from the same floor. So, during the first break, my sisters who were smokers went outside, and there was one full-time woman who went to read a newspaper in a corner. So I went towards the lunchroom for my break. Once there, I sat with the others, thinking I would get to know my brothers. That's when the jokes started. After 5 minutes, all I could think of was to get out of there because the jokes were anything but funny. They were crude remarks about women. My only thought was, I want to get out of here. But then I said to myself, no way, if you walk out now, you'll never be able to set foot in here again. So I just sat there and I waited for the break to finish. Those breaks with such embarrassing words which I had never heard such, how can I say, such sexist terms, so hateful to women. I couldn't believe so much could be said in so little time. Usually a break goes by very quickly, but those breaks were the longest in my life. It was really awful, and it was like that at every break. So I tried to find a solution that would make the situation more normal. But I wanted to avoid conflict. I didn't feel comfortable taking on the whole gang at the same time, 1 against 15.
About 3 years ago, a supervisor was harassing me for, I felt, no apparent reason. He would watch me, he would stare, he would stand at my case for my whole shift. He would deny me anything that I would ask for. He would hide behind poles to watch me through my shift. He would hide behind cases.
When I had taken it to higher authority in the post office, they just kind of smirked and felt it was nothing, but I strongly felt it was racial harassment.
During that period, I was quite unhappy. I would go to work pretty sick, but stay at work. When I had confronted my boss and his boss, it was treated as a joke and that it was no big deal.
I was new to the station. The letter carrier working directly behind me with our backs to each other was a particularly loud and I would say obnoxious individual where I think for about the first 2 months I endured this sort of behavior until it began to really get on my nerves, and I found it affecting my work. I think what happened in this incident is I walked into a situation that was explosive. And I think the situation in that station had always been that way, and everyone had tolerated it in working there every day. So what happened in the continuing months was he would do stuff that I found intolerable, and I would talk to my supervisor. He would talk to the man, the carrier, and the carrier would come back to his case and increase those things that I had complained about, those specific things that I had complained about. And we would have this escalation happening over a period of about 2 months with my complaints and his more action and on, to the point where everyone in the station was pretty tense. I wanted this dealt with. I wanted it over. I wanted to just go to work and do my job. And no one was doing anything. And no one was supporting me. And I felt very alone, very isolated.
On se situe là 2 ans en plein été.
It happened 2 years ago, in the heat of summer. I was preparing my mail in the morning before delivery. It was really hot in the station, and I'd removed my shirt and tie to prepare the mail. I was wearing a t-shirt, a sleeveless top with a bra underneath. So, from an aesthetic and hygienic point of view, it was proper. One of my colleagues complained to my supervisor. I was called into the office and told this wasn't proper attire. But I held my ground. I said, no, I don't buy that. Everyone else, by the way, I'm the only woman letter carrier in my workplace. So I defended myself. But it continued and degenerated. This person kept on harassing me with vulgar or mean comments, never with any witnesses. For my part, each time this person said those words, I don't know if I should repeat them. Bitch, slut, cock teaser, etc., etc. Well, what I would do is go see my boss and tell him, listen, I don't have to put up with this verbal harassment. The whole time, the boss would say, I can't do anything, it's hearsay, there's no witnesses. This situation lasted 1.5 years until someone from Human Rights met with this person and told them, you either stop or we'll take disciplinary action. I had to fight for 1.5 years just to be able to work in peace.
First, it was the standard homophobic stuff, like homo this and fucking queer that, within my earshot, but not aimed directly at me. Then it was a Victoria's Secrets magazine left at my case, then a crude picture taped on my locker. Harmless, I suppose, but jokes like that really bugged me after a while. They kept reminding me that I wasn't welcome in my own workplace, let alone tolerated. After I went out one time and found flat tires on my car, that was it. I transferred out. No way do I want anyone in my new workplace to know I'm gay. It's better just to keep quiet. Keep quiet. Keep
Maudite tapette.
fucking queer.
Crise de butch.
Keep quiet.
J'étais une chienne, j'étais une putain.
I didn't think that I was in any danger.
He was treated as a joke.
Aussi sexiste, aussi contre les
I
femmes.
wasn't welcome in my own workplace.
I felt very alone, very isolated.
I worked for the post office for 10 years. And in that 10 years, I have been called a few names, such as nigger, crow. I was told one time that blacks' mentality is not as smart as whites.
Because of him, I was under a lot of stress. I had migraines. I've gone to specialists thinking something's wrong with my head because the pain was so bad. And they narrowed it down to, it's your job.
it literally made me feel like a mouse. I mean, the transition of being broken down from what I consider myself to be a fairly strong individual, and I'm just recalling this now, so it's making me feel little. It really did reduce me to feeling like a mouse, scared like a mouse. I was afraid to go to work. I was afraid to be out on my route. I had a thought one day that he was going to come out in his truck out on my route to either yell at me or come after me. So thoughts like this would come into my head.
I don't think he would have gone so far as to hit me, because that would have caused him too much trouble. But still, the fear was there. It was a constant fear. I was scared he would injure me when he went by with a buggy full of mail, a couple of inches from my legs. He didn't hurt me, but the threat was there. It was always there.
It was really, really hard to go in day after day. I woke up with a sick feeling in my stomach in the morning and dreaded, absolutely dreaded having to go to work and had to absolutely drag myself there. When I was there, I was hypersensitive to this man's presence because he still was harassing me. So I never relaxed.
When I felt that I exhausted all my efforts with trying to get something done through management and nothing was happening, I contacted Kathy, and that's when we filed a grievance for sexual harassment. And that's when it was such a critical point where I felt my safety was at risk. I was advised by the union to stay at home while the investigation took place, and that's what I did.
Yeah, it was safer for her to stay at home while the union sort of like took over and did an investigation. And what we did was, the first thing we did was we went right to the supervisor and complained that he wasn't doing his job.
Just the feeling of being in the union office was so totally different from being in the station. It was such a relief to go in, and I think by that time I was fairly nervous around being around men. And so going into the union office and feeling men that were supportive and caring and encouraging me and encouraging me to stay and fight this was really, really a boost to my self-esteem and gave me the kind of support that I needed to kind of, get through that.
Following my complaint, the man was told to stop all harassment. If not, he would probably lose his job or be transferred. And he didn't want that, because he has a lot more seniority than me. He wanted me to be transferred out of the station. I was the victim, so I didn't understand why I should have to be transferred instead of him. I should tell you that today, the brother in question is still there.
At that time, there was a meeting, the pre-negotiations conference, where Brother Jacques Chabot and Sister Michel Gay had agreed that we would speak to the brothers who were stewards on that floor. So when the harassing steward arrived, we spoke to him, and he said, there is no longer any trouble. Marie passed the test. She's the only woman to tough it out the lunchroom. She's okay now. She can stay with us. I had passed the test. But since when do you need to pass a test to take a break? I found that unbelievable.
When dealing with harassment cases, the first thing we do is we read the collective agreement, Article 56, to the supervisor. Then we read their own corporate policy to them. By reading the corporate policy to the supervisor, you then are telling them what their job is and what they're supposed to do. Attitudes are really changing because of this article, as they should. And one thing for sure, It's sure waking up Winnipeg.
In the Union, before Article 56, we didn't have many options to deal with problems around harassment in all its forms, whether it be sexual or racial. Of course, we could listen, respond to the members, and try to get someone to listen to us. But in terms of tools to find a solution with the employer, it was very difficult.
Prior to that article coming in, we didn't have anything to base our yelling and screaming on. We could go to management and say, you know, you have a policy saying that you're supposed to do this. And management would say, yeah, and that would be it.
The strongest thing about Article 56 is that it gives us an important tool to intervene, starting from the time a member, a man or a woman, files a complaint. It allows us to intervene with the employer, and then, if the situation doesn't improve after a joint investigation with the union, we can have the harasser move to a location where he or she can't cause problems for the sister or brother who has filed a complaint.
Article 56, combined with good information, good education, becomes something important. When I give educational courses, I talk about my experience because it can be useful, as often people taking a course will say, I was harassing and I wasn't aware of it. To me, it was just jokes. But that type of joke isn't funny. Now, it's easier as an instructor. I can show them the difference better by explaining what I've gone through. I don't have to talk about theory, I talk about experience. At least it will have served that purpose.
The union has evolved, and I think that including Article 56 in the collective agreement is sort of like the logical consequence of everything that's happened in the union over the last 20 years. Now we can say, yes, we've made steps forward. Yes, women have their place in the union. But all that's not enough. We still have problems. So we have to solve them now, at the source. I'm proud that we've taken these problems seriously in the union. It'll ensure that our members will feel at ease, comfortable, and respected in the union when they realize this isn't just wishful thinking on the part of the union leadership and the union in general, and that people really do have their place and can be respected.
Well, in the 16 years I've been with Canada Post, I've kind of been sitting on the fence between union and management. I think with this happening to me, it's really inspired me to work with the union.
Now it's great. It's you know, it's better. It is. I'm not being stared and watched at and criticized. I do my job.
There's so many people out there that are saying, you know, there's no discrimination, that there is no homophobia. It is out there, we all know it, but we're all working towards stopping it. An injury to one is an injury to all.
One thing for sure, in Winnipeg, it's woken them up, Article 56.